In this video, we'll continue our discussion of the selection tools. If you're following along, we have already covered the marquee tools, which rely on shapes. And we'll now be working with the lasso tools, which rely on your hand and how you draw within the document. You'll see here the primary lasso tool is a free-form lasso tool, which will allow you to draw in any way you want. And it's perfect for creating organic selections. The polygonal lasso tool also allows you to draw at will, but it does constrain you to straight lines. And then the magnetic lasso tool, again, does allow you to draw, but it works best in combination with distinct color shifts. And I will work through each of those now. Okay, so in this exercise, instead of playing with these little sections of the duck itself, like the eyes, we'll be working with the entire body of the duck. And in this case, let's say we want to select our yellow ducky and separate it from the white background. To do that, starting with the regular lasso tool, the one on top, okay, I could simply draw around my ducky. And to do this, I need to click to start, and I need to hold my mouse as I draw around my duck. Okay. Now you're going to see that if you have a really steady hand, this will work really well. If your hand is not so steady, okay, you're going to see that you get these wiggly lines, and I'm starting to do this much more quickly just to end this exercise. Okay, to close this selection, I need to come back to where I start and release, and you'll see that you get the dancing ants that show that you have made a selection. Again, I can do a copy paste, and I'll grab my move tool so you can just see how sad and sort of crazy this duck looks. Okay, not cute, really wavy, not loving it. Okay, so I am going to make sure I'm on my layer 4, and I'll just delete that ugly duck. Okay. Again, this is a great tool for random selection. So if I know that, I kind of want this wing sort of shape, I could come in and simply draw this. Okay, I could add a feather to it. Perhaps I want to create multiple feathers and have it look really natural on my duck. Again, I could draw this organically, use a little bit of a feather, and then move and place this around on my duck. But in this case, that's not what I'm doing. So I'm going to deselect this selection, and you can do that by either hitting Control or Command D, D as in dog, on your keyboard, or you can come up to Select on your menu and you'll see Deselect. Okay, again, Command or Control D. All right, it's really important when you see those dancing ants, if they're not in relation to a function you actually want to complete, that you get rid of them because they will get in the way. Okay, so I'm going to move beyond my regular lasso tool, and I'm going to grab my polygonal lasso tool. And again, this one allows you to draw, but it's in relation to straight lines. So I can click, and you'll see, I can come back, click again, click. It's a little bit more relaxed because I don't have to do the entire drawing function at the same time, and I can work in small sections to try to more accurately grab the areas of my duck. Okay. Now, this is a handy tool. It's really great, if you're working with something like a skyscraper or a textbook, something that has a lot of straight lines, which will allow you to trace around the shape quickly. But if I'm using something curved and I want to retain all of these lovely curves on my duck, I've got to work in really small sections, and this is going to take me a while. Okay. And so to speed this up, again, because so far it looks like I've done a pretty good job, I'm just going to come in and make some larger straight lines, grab as much of my duck as I can. Again, I have to come back to where I started, and you'll see here that when I come back to my starting point, if you look at my cursor, a little O appears, okay? And that's just a visual reference that I'm back at where I started, and that can be handy in some instances. Here my image is pretty simple. I can see where I started, but let's say you're working on a black and white image that's really complex. You may have a hard time finding that starting point, okay? So you can look for the O on your cursor. And so again, I can copy paste if I just want to see what this duck looks like. And again, I have all these weird straight lines, so my ducky looks kind of robotronic. But you'll see everywhere else where I really took my time, it looks pretty good. Okay, there's some areas where it's a little bit pointy, but overall it's pretty good. Okay. Again, I don't want this duck, so I'm going to delete it. Again, I'll make sure that I'm on my background layer. And let's move to the final lasso tool, which is my magnetic lasso tool. Okay. Now, I purposely worked through all of these because I need to obviously show you how to use each of these tools, but I think you also learn a great deal by using the wrong tool a couple of times and then seeing why the right tool works so much better. And so in this instance, again, the magnetic lasso tool, okay, lets me draw around my shape, but it also looks for distinct changes in color. And so my duck is this really rich sort of golden yellow on white. And so if I come in and click, and I don't need to hold my mouse, but I do need to hover around the border of my duck. Okay, Photoshop in its infinite wisdom is picking up where my hand is and recognizing that there is a color shift here. And I can move much more quickly than I could with the polygonal lasso tool. I still need to be a little careful because you'll see I can force the issue. All right. But as long as I stay around the border, Photoshop and my hand are going to trace this ducky really well. Okay. And again, same thing, I need to go all the way around the border of the duck, and then I need to click where I began, which is a little more obvious here because I have the square, so I'll go ahead and click. Again, I'll copy and paste, and you can see that my selection is perfect, okay, with the exception of the area that I purposely showed that if you're not careful, you can mess up the selection. Okay. All right, so this is a pretty nice tool. Okay, again, it's very reliant on your hand and on a distinct color difference. So if we're talking about color, this kind of tool is not going to work well in a black and white environment where the entire image is made up of black, white, and a series of grays. It's not going to work great on someone's hair if they're on a backdrop that is of similar color. Okay, again, it needs to be really distinct for this to work. Okay, so again, I messed up my duck, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete her. And I will be back in a moment to run through the final two selection tools and to talk a little bit more deeply about adding and subtracting to your selections.